Welcome to another video. So we are going to transfer the following part to SolidWorks, and we're going to define the mold tool over there. So I already saved this as a step file and I have opened that within Solid. As you can see, we also have over here the import diagnostic. I'm going to click no in this case. And the first thing that we're going to see is that the orientation will be like this. So we have the y-axis going upwards, while within CATIA we had the z-axis. So we're going to need to go ahead and rotate the part. We could design the tooling split to open like this, but I'm just going to rotate those. So I'm going to go to move faces within the mold tools environment. And over here, I will select the faces. I'm going to go for rotation. And over here on the axis, I will add 90 on the Y and the Z axis as well. You can left click over here and that will give you a preview. And you're going to see that after those rotation, the part orientation will be as following. So now also you're going to see that the default shadow within Solid will be casted like this. So we want those two tooling splits, one to go upward, one on the bottom. So we can go ahead and we can design a draft analysis. Now, when you are designing and applying this draft analysis, you can also use the predefined planes in this case. And we're going to see that for 2 degrees, in this case, this will be how those tooling split will be. So this will be more than fine. We can go ahead and we can define the parting line. We can use this to separate the core and cavity. And again, I will need to select that pulling direction, which will be this one. I'm going to go for draft analysis. It will be the following. So we're going to see over here that I can also go ahead and I can split those faces. So I want that within this region where we're going to have the following, I'm going to just click on that propagate for the tangency. And this is where we want our mold to be splitten. So right where we're going to have that section with green and the one with red. So we see that the parting line is complete. The mold can be separated into core and cavity. I'm going to hit OK. And we have the following. And we can go ahead and we can define. In this case, I don't have anything for shot of surface. So I don't have any surface that will need to be filled. So I can just go ahead with the parting surfaces in this case. And let's further extend those. You're going to see that with perpendicular to pull, this will deform over here as following. So I'm just going to add over here 150 millimeters. And now we're going to see that this will be that parting surface. You can also go with normal to surface, which will output the following. So if I'm going to click OK, we're going to have the following surface over here. So we can go ahead and we can create a sketch. I'm just going to create a new sketch. I'm going to start with a rectangle directly from the origin. Or I can better fit this with another rectangle like this. You can also go ahead and you can add some dimensions. Let's see, 250 millimeters by 320. You can also put this at the middle. So you can select those two. The last one will be the point. I don't have that middle over here, so I'm just going to do it differently. I'm just going to add over here 220 divided by 2. And that should be in the middle. We see over here that this will be the surface. So straight from the top view, this will not go outside that corner. So we can just go ahead and we can design over here the tooling split. Now it's important to make sure that those block sizes will be larger than the part. So let's see something like this. I'm just gonna add some nominal values. Only 15 over here. I'm gonna click OK. And we now have those defined. So we can go ahead and we can save this part. I'm just gonna go over here within drawing and I will save the part over here. And within solid bodies, I can go ahead and I can save those individual bodies. I can assign them a name. I can browse over here and I'm gonna add over here citrus. because I also want that product to be designed and saved. I'm gonna select that template with yes for all of those three parts. And now we're gonna have this part rebuilt. You can also disable the draft analysis. And if you're gonna go within window, Citrus, you're gonna have those all elements over here. So I can just make them float. And with move, I will move the top part. I'm gonna hit OK. After that, I will also move that part. And we can go ahead and we can do a little bit of mating. So I want this to be fixed. And I want to mate that bottom surface to that area. Over here, I can also do a mating using an edge. So as you can see, it will be the following. So I can select that edge. I want that to be merged and mated with that one. So it doesn't really actually want to go there. Then let's do something else. I'm going to do another mate with that section. Over here, it will be a little bit trickier as well. So let's just go with something rounded over here. We see where this was splitted, so that and that. Those two arcs are not actually a viable solution in this case for the mating. So we're gonna need to go ahead and check for some alternatives in this case. So let's see over here, this half of circle with that will be a viable solution. So keep in mind when you are trying to do the matings like this, that you will need those viable selections. And now this is not fully mated. As you can see, I can still rotate this around. And if I'm going to move it, it will move as following. So we can go ahead and we can add an additional mate. That additional mate can be, again, for that bottom section. So I want that part. We see that Solid will automatically add us this see-through, and I can just select it like this, but I want this to actually be flipped. So I'm just gonna redo that. So I want another mate with this section, and I'm just gonna mate it with that one. So I see over here that I receive over here a tangent, but that is not actually tangent, which I wanna add. I just wanna add them to be coincident. As you can see, it can be a little bit trickier to fully mate this. So let's just try that again. I'm just gonna go ahead and I will do it differently now. So I will just hide this bottom part, and I want that edge, and I will show that to be exactly the same as this one. So we're gonna need to have this coincident. So I have the possibility over here to do a concentric, but it doesn't really allow me to do a coincidence between those two. So as you can see, we still have those two mates over here. So I have half of that circle, which was a viable and okay solution in this case, and we have the other one. So we still need an additional constraint to have this locked together. So I'm just gonna try over here and see if those will work. As you can see, those will not work as well. I'm just gonna go with a point selection then. I want that point to be exactly the same as that point. In this case, I can only add a distance between those two. So I'm gonna go ahead and I will search for additional mating elements over here. Usually it will be a good idea to have something maybe on the bottom that I can easily cut out, and I can use those as reference over here. But let's see over here. Those edges, again, will not be a viable solution. So this is a little bit more trickier than I initially thought. Let's see if we can use some surfaces in this case. So those should be a perfect match. But since this is a freeform, it doesn't actually know exactly what to align with what. So that again will not be a viable option over here. Now, if I'm taking a closer look onto this, I can also use maybe some circles with the top section, but over here it will be still necessary to address this problem over here, because I will need to make this initially. So and only after that I can make that top section. So let's see if we're gonna find some additional viable mates over here. We're gonna have this section over here that should be exactly the same as that one. But since we didn't specify exactly in what point, it doesn't actually know exactly how to move that part over there. So as you can see, this is still being constrained like this. So initially I thought that we can easily do over here some mating directly with those bottom elements, but we saw that it only worked for half of that. So if I'm just gonna hide this tooling split, we know that this half worked, but this one doesn't. So let's take a look over here. We have that selected, and over here this should be as following, so it should be with that one. But again, that is not a viable solution over here. Let me just reveal this. As you can see, this will be a little bit more trickier than expected over here. So this is not fully constrained. I can go ahead and I can constrain those two, because over here we're gonna have those elements pretty well defined, and we're gonna see that if I will now go with move, I can move that. But the problem is that the part underneath it, which is this one, this is still not fully defined over here. So let's just take a look over here if we can find some additional mating elements between those two. So we know exactly that the part will be within that position, so we have that point. But we see that if I'm just going to constrain that vertex with the other vertex, which will be over here. So this is already over here. I can hit OK. And now if I'm going to hide that, if I will try to move it, you're going to see that this will now actually be in position. So it is a little bit weird that I managed to link that vertex, but when I try onto one of the other edges, Solid would not accept that as a viable solution. But yeah, this is why it's important to go ahead and do this multiple times until you're gonna find that that merging. Over here for those two vertices, those will be a viable solution. And now, if I'm just gonna go within a section view over here through the part, so like this, we're gonna have this perfectly closed. We can even go ahead and we can change maybe the color of a component. So we have over here the tooling split, which is this one. We have the part over here. I can go ahead and I can change the appearance for this. I'm just gonna go ahead and make this a different color. So let's add a color. I want this to be for the whole part, and I want this to be edited. And let's say that I want to make that red. I can now go back and I can go within a new section. And we're going to see that within the section, our part will look like this. So we're going to have that shape for the citrus highlighted in red, and we can go ahead and we can move within that. We can also go ahead and we can further add some animation steps. For example, this will be the first step. This will be the second one. If you want to, you can also do the collapse, but Solid will automatically do that in reverse. So now if I will right click, I can go over here and I can click animate collapse. We're gonna have it like this. If you have the play mode set to this function, so You can have that looped back and forward. With normal loop, it will be like this. So you're going to see where that will restart. So it's a good idea to have this setting on. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this kind of content. As we saw, it's a little bit trickier in some cases to do those mates, since we don't have any, let's say, flat surface like we have over here on the box. But if you manage, we can find those required mates in order to make sure that this is perfectly aligned. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this kind of content. I'm gonna add a similar video over here on the left side, and I will also add a subscribe button to the right. So that's it. Thanks for watching.